She smiled while firing me on Friday, but on Tuesday, I was sitting in her boss's chair. "Lennon, I'm afraid we have to let you go," Rebecca said, her smile so wide it looked like it might crack her face in half. "Budget cuts, you understand? Nothing personal." The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. I sat there in the sterile conference room, watching her perfectly manicured fingers tap against the mahogany table, that satisfied gleam in her eyes telling me everything I needed to know about how nothing personal this really was. My name is Lennon Rivera, and until that Friday afternoon, I was the head of digital innovation at Sterling Associates, one of the most prestigious marketing firms in downtown Seattle. For 8 years, I had poured my life into this company, building their digital presence from literally nothing into a multi-million-dollar revenue stream. When I started here in 2016, Sterling Associates was still operating like it was 1995. Their biggest technological achievement was figuring out how to send emails with attachments. The CEO, Jonathan Sterling, had hired me fresh out of my MBA program with a simple mandate. "Make us relevant in the digital age, son. I don't care what it costs or how long it takes." And I did exactly that. I built their first real website, launched their social media presence, created their content marketing strategy, and most importantly, I developed the proprietary client analytics platform that became the backbone of every major campaign we ran. By 2020, the digital division I had created was generating 65% of the company's total revenue. But Rebecca Walsh had other plans. She joined Sterling Associates 18 months ago as the new Chief Operating Officer, hired directly by Jonathan's son, David Sterling, who had recently been promoted to president. Rebecca came with an impressive resume from a larger firm in New York, and she made it clear from day one that she intended to modernize operations and eliminate redundancies. What she really meant was that she wanted to reshape the company in her own image, and anyone who had been there before her arrival was automatically suspect. From the moment she walked through our glass doors in her $1,000 heels and designer suits, Rebecca made it her mission to undermine everything I had built. She questioned every decision I made, demanded detailed reports on projects that had been running smoothly for years, and constantly suggested that we needed fresh perspectives on digital strategy. The first real conflict came 6 months after her arrival, during what should have been a routine quarterly review. "Lennon," she had said, sitting across from me in her pristine office, "I've been reviewing the digital division's performance metrics, and while the revenue numbers look good, I'm concerned about efficiency." I had stared at her, genuinely confused. "What kind of efficiency concerns?" "Well, for example, your team seems to spend a lot of time on client hand-holding, all these personal meetings, custom reports, detailed explanations of every campaign element. It seems excessive." That's when I realized she fundamentally misunderstood what made our digital division successful. Our clients didn't just buy our services, they bought our expertise, our attention to detail, and our commitment to making sure they understood exactly what they were paying for. "Rebecca," I had tried to explain, "those aren't inefficiencies. That's relationship building. Our client retention rate is 94% because they trust us to deliver results and explain how we achieve them." She had waved her hand dismissively. "Lennon, I appreciate your dedication, but at the end of the day, clients are paying for results, not friendship. We need to streamline these processes and focus on scalable solutions." Over the following months, Rebecca systematically began dismantling everything that made our digital division unique. She mandated that all client communications go through her office first. She eliminated our custom reporting system in favor of generic templates. She cut our client meeting budget by 60%, insisting that most discussions could be handled via email. The results were predictable and devastating. Within 3 months, 2 major clients had expressed concerns about the impersonal nature of our new communication style. Within 6 months, We had lost our first major account in 5 years, a technology startup that specifically cited lack of strategic partnership and personalized attention as their reason for leaving. But instead of recognizing the connection between her policy changes and our declining client satisfaction, Rebecca doubled down. She started suggesting that perhaps the digital division needed new leadership with a more contemporary approach to client relations. The writing was on the wall, but I was too committed to the company I had helped build to see it clearly. The final straw came 3 weeks before that Friday termination meeting. Our biggest client, Meridian Financial Group, had requested a strategy session to discuss their upcoming product launch campaign. This was exactly the kind of high-stakes project that had made our reputation complex, multi-platform, with a 7-figure budget. I had been managing Meridian's account personally for 4 years. They trusted my team implicitly, and their previous 3 campaigns had exceeded performance targets by an average of 180%. This should have been a routine planning session, but Rebecca insisted on attending. "I want to ensure we're presenting our most polished professional image," she had told me. "This is too important to leave to chance." The meeting was a disaster. Where I would have spent time understanding Meridian's specific goals and challenges, Rebecca launched into a generic presentation about leveraging synergistic digital ecosystems for maximum ROI optimization. Where I would have asked detailed questions about their target demographics and competitive landscape, she pitched standardized packages that had nothing to do with their industry. Most damaging of all, when Meridian's CEO, Diana Morley, asked specific questions about campaign analytics and performance tracking, Rebecca confidently described features that our platform didn't actually have. "We can absolutely provide real-time sentiment analysis across all social platforms," she had said, "integrated with predictive modeling for viral coefficient optimization." I had to interrupt. "Rebecca, I think there might be some confusion about our current capabilities. We can provide comprehensive analytics, but not in the exact configuration you're describing." The look Rebecca gave me could have frozen molten steel. Diana Morley noticed the tension immediately. After the meeting, Diana pulled me aside. "Lennon, I need to ask you directly, is everything okay with your team? That presentation didn't feel like the sterling associates we've been working with for 4 years." I had tried to smooth things over, but the damage was done. 2 weeks later, Meridian requested a meeting to reassess their vendor relationships and explore alternative options. Rebecca blamed me entirely. "Your interruption during that presentation undermined my authority and confused the client," she had said during our next one-on-one meeting. Diana Morley specifically mentioned that she was concerned about internal communications and coordination. "She was concerned because you promised deliverables that don't exist," I had replied, probably more sharply than I should have. If I hadn't corrected the record, we would have been in breach of contract within the first month. That was the moment I sealed my fate. Rebecca's eyes had narrowed, and her voice had taken on a tone I had never heard before. "Lennon, I think you need to carefully consider whether your approach to collaborative leadership is aligned with this company's strategic direction." 2 weeks later, I was sitting in that conference room, listening to her explain how budget cuts required my immediate termination. "We've decided to restructure the digital division under more centralized leadership," she had continued, still wearing that satisfied smile. "Your role has become redundant with our new operational efficiency initiatives." The irony was suffocating. The digital division I had built was now generating almost 70% of the company's revenue, but apparently, I was redundant. "Rebecca," I had said, trying to keep my voice steady, "you realize that the proprietary analytics platform the entire digital division runs on was developed by me personally? The client relationships, the campaign strategies, the vendor partnerships, I created all of that from scratch." Her smile had gotten even wider. "Oh, don't worry about that, Lennon. We have plenty of talented people who can manage those systems. Change is good for everyone. As I cleaned out my desk that afternoon, my colleagues kept stopping by to express their shock and disbelief. "This is insane," whispered Jennifer, one of our senior account managers. "You are the digital division. How can they think this is going to work?" "Politics," replied Tom from Creative Services. "Rebecca's been gunning for you since day one. She probably thinks she can take credit for everything you built." But I didn't want to burn bridges or create drama. I thanked everyone for their support, promised to stay in touch, and walked out of Sterling Associates for what I thought was the last time. That weekend, I sat on my apartment balcony overlooking Elliott Bay, trying to process what had happened and figure out what came next. I had been so focused on building something great that I had never considered the possibility that someone might destroy it just to prove they could. By Sunday evening, I had made a decision. If Rebecca wanted to run the digital division without me, I was going to give her exactly what she wanted and let her discover firsthand what she had really inherited. Monday morning, I sent a brief email to Jonathan Sterling's executive assistant, requesting a meeting to discuss important transition matters related to proprietary systems and client relationships. I made sure to copy David Sterling and the company's legal counsel on the message. The meeting was scheduled for Tuesday at 10 a.m. Monday night, my phone started ringing. The first call was from Jennifer at Sterling Associates. "Lennon, you need to know what happened today. Rebecca called an emergency meeting with the digital team to announce the new organizational structure. She's promoting herself to head of digital innovation and bringing in some consultant from New York to be her deputy." "How did the team react?" I asked. "About as well as you'd expect. 3 people asked direct questions about client account management, and Rebecca couldn't answer any of them. She kept saying that systems and processes would be streamlined and optimized, but she clearly has no idea how anything actually works." The second call came from Tom in Creative Services. "Lennon, I probably shouldn't be telling you this, but Rebecca spent the entire afternoon trying to access the analytics platform you built. Apparently, she locked herself out after 6 failed password attempts, and now the whole system is in security mode." I had to smile at that. I had built multiple redundant security protocols into the platform specifically to prevent unauthorized access. It wasn't malicious, it was just good engineering. The third call was the most interesting. Diana Morley from Meridian Financial Group called my personal cell phone around 9 p.m. "Lennon, I hope you don't mind me calling directly, but I wanted to let you know that Sterling Associates reached out today about reassigning our account to new management. The person I spoke with seemed to have no familiarity with our previous campaigns or current projects." "I'm sorry to hear that, Diana. I'm sure they'll get someone up to speed quickly." "Actually, that's why I'm calling. Meridian has been very happy with the work your team has done, but our satisfaction has always been tied to your personal involvement and expertise. If you're no longer going to be managing our account, we need to have some serious conversations about our future with Sterling Associates." "I understand completely, Diana. You should do whatever is best for Meridian's business. What I'm really calling to ask is whether you have any plans to start your own consultancy, because if you do, Meridian would be very interested in continuing our working relationship in a new context." I hadn't considered that possibility before, but as Diana explained it, the concept made perfect sense. I had the expertise, the relationships, and now, unfortunately, the motivation to build something entirely new. Tuesday morning arrived faster than I expected. I walked into Sterling Associates at 9:45 a.m., carrying a briefcase full of documents and a very clear understanding of what I needed to accomplish in the next hour. Jonathan Sterling's office occupied the entire northeast corner of the 32nd floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a commanding view of Puget Sound. At 67 years old, Jonathan was still sharp, decisive, and genuinely committed to the success of the company he had built from nothing 40 years earlier. "Lennon," he said, standing up from behind his massive oak desk. "I have to say, I was surprised to get your meeting request. David told me about the organizational restructuring, but I wanted to hear your perspective on the transition." David Sterling sat to his left, looking considerably less comfortable. At 38, David had his father's business instincts but not his experience in reading people and situations. He had been the one to hire Rebecca, and I suspected he was beginning to realize the magnitude of that mistake. "Mr. Sterling," I began, "I requested this meeting because I believe there are some critical issues with the digital division transition that need your immediate attention." I opened my briefcase and pulled out the first document, a comprehensive analysis of client satisfaction metrics over the past 18 months. As you can see from this data, client satisfaction scores for the digital division have declined by 23% since Rebecca implemented her new operational procedures. More significantly, we've had formal complaints from 4 major clients about reduced service quality and communication. Jonathan's expression grew serious as he reviewed the numbers. These metrics weren't included in any of the reports I've received about division performance. That's because Rebecca eliminated our client feedback tracking system 6 months ago. She said it was redundant with standard company surveys. I pulled out the second document, detailed revenue projections showing the financial impact of recent client losses and pending contract reviews. Based on current client retention trends, the digital division is facing potential revenue losses of $3.2 million over the next 12 months. Meridian Financial Group has already requested a meeting to discuss terminating their contract. David Sterling leaned forward, clearly alarmed. Meridian represents almost 30% of our digital revenue. What's their specific concern? They're concerned about continuity of service and account management expertise. Diana Morley specifically mentioned that recent communications have been generic and disconnected from our business needs. I saved the most important document for last, a detailed technical analysis of the proprietary analytics platform that powered the entire digital division. "Mr. Sterling, there's something else you need to understand. The analytics platform that processes all of our digital campaigns was developed by me personally over the past 5 years. It's not a commercial software package that can be operated by anyone with basic training." Jonathan studied the technical documentation with growing concern. "Are you saying that other staff members can't operate this system?" "I'm saying that the system requires specialized knowledge of its architecture, database structures, and integration protocols. Without that knowledge, it's essentially a very expensive black box that produces reports nobody can interpret or modify." "But surely Rebecca has been briefed on how to manage these systems?" David asked. I had to choose my words carefully here. Yesterday, the platform automatically locked down due to multiple failed access attempts from administrative accounts. This is a security feature I built in to prevent unauthorized modifications that could corrupt client data. The room went very quiet. "Lennon," Jonathan said slowly, "what exactly are you telling us?" "I'm telling you that Rebecca terminated the only person who can effectively operate the systems that generate 70% of your revenue. And based on client feedback, she's also eliminated the service approach that maintained the relationships generating that revenue." David Sterling had gone pale. "How quickly could you restore system access and brief replacement staff?" "That depends on several factors. The technical training alone would take weeks, assuming the new person has the right background. But the bigger issue is client relationships. Diana Morley from Meridian was very clear that their satisfaction was tied to continuity of account management." Jonathan leaned back in his chair, and I could see him processing the full scope of the situation. "Lennon, I need to ask you directly, is this situation recoverable? Honestly, Mr. Sterling, I don't know. Some of the damage might be permanent. But I came here today because I believe you deserve to understand what's actually happening with your digital division." There was a long pause before Jonathan spoke again. "David, I need you to get Rebecca in here immediately. And I want a full audit of all digital division client contracts and pending renewals on my desk by end of business today." "Dad, I think we should also consider..." "What we should consider?" Jonathan interrupted, is how we allowed someone to dismantle our most profitable division without understanding what they were dismantling. He turned back to me. Lennon, I owe you an apology, and more than that, I owe you a conversation about how we fix this mess. 20 minutes later, Rebecca walked into Jonathan's office wearing her usual confident smile. It faded quickly when she saw me sitting at the conference table, with detailed reports spread out in front of me. You wanted to see me, Mr. Sterling? Rebecca, I need you to explain to me how the digital division is going to maintain client relationships and operate technical systems without Lennon. I watched Rebecca's expression carefully as she processed the question. She clearly hadn't expected to have to justify the termination decision to senior management. Mr. Sterling, as I explained in my restructuring proposal, we're streamlining operations to eliminate redundancies and improve efficiency. Lennon's role had become unnecessarily specialized. We have plenty of talented staff who can manage digital campaigns. Which staff members? David asked. Can you give me specific names of people who can operate our analytics platform? Rebecca hesitated. Well, the platform is essentially automated. Most of the work is handled by the software itself. Rebecca, Jonathan said quietly, I'm looking at technical documentation that suggests the platform requires specialized knowledge to operate effectively. Are you telling me that's incorrect? Mr. Sterling, with respect, I think Lennon may be overstating the complexity of these systems to make himself seem indispensable. That's when I knew Rebecca had made a fatal error. She had just accused me of lying to the CEO in front of witnesses about technical matters that could be easily verified. Jonathan's voice remained calm, but his tone had changed completely. Rebecca, are you able to access the analytics platform right now? Of course. I mean, there were some minor password issues yesterday, but can you show us? What followed was 10 minutes of the most professionally devastating demonstration I had ever witnessed. Rebecca tried repeatedly to log into the system, using various combinations of passwords and administrative overrides. Each failed attempt triggered additional security protocols, eventually locking her out completely. This is clearly a technical glitch, she said, her confidence finally starting to crack. I'll have IT reset the passwords. Rebecca, I said quietly, the system isn't malfunctioning. It's operating exactly as designed. Those security protocols were specifically created to prevent unauthorized access to client data. Jonathan stood up from his desk. Rebecca, I need you to leave us alone for a few minutes. David will call you when we're ready to continue this conversation. After she left, Jonathan sat back down and looked directly at me. Lennon, I'm going to be frank with you. This company made a serious mistake, and I'm not sure how to fix it. What would it take to get you back? Mr. Sterling, I appreciate the offer, but honestly, the situation has evolved beyond that. What do you mean? I pulled out one final document, a business plan I had spent Monday evening preparing. I mean that 3 major clients have already approached me about continuing our working relationship through an independent consultancy. If I return to Sterling Associates, I'll be working under the same operational constraints that caused these problems in the first place. David leaned forward. What kind of consultancy? Specialized digital marketing strategy for mid to large-scale B2B clients. Essentially, the same services I was providing here, but with the flexibility to maintain the client relationships and service quality that Rebecca's system couldn't accommodate. Jonathan studied the business plan for several minutes before speaking. Lennon, what if we made you a partner instead of an employee? Full autonomy over the digital division, equity participation, and guaranteed operational independence? It was a generous offer. More generous than I had expected. But I had already made my decision. Mr. Sterling, 6 months ago, that would have been my dream offer, but the trust has been broken. I've learned that my professional security can't depend on one person's opinion of my value. I understand, but I have to ask what happens to our existing digital clients? That's up to them. I'll honor any non-compete restrictions in my employment agreement, But I can't control whether clients choose to follow me to a new firm. Jonathan nodded slowly. And Rebecca? That's your decision to make. But if you want my honest assessment, she never understood what made the digital division successful, and she's not capable of learning quickly enough to prevent further damage. The meeting ended with handshakes and mutual respect, but no resolution. I walked out of Sterling Associates for the second time, but this time with a completely different feeling about the future. Wednesday morning brought the first wave of client decisions. Diana Morley from Meridian Financial Group called at 9 a.m. to formally terminate their contract with Sterling Associates and request a proposal for independent consulting services. Michael Torres from Cascade Technologies called an hour later with the same request. By noon, I had heard from 5 former clients, all expressing interest in continuing our working relationship through a new business structure. Thursday afternoon, I received a call from Jennifer, my former colleague at Sterling Associates. Lennon, you need to know what happened this morning. Rebecca called another emergency meeting to address operational challenges in the digital division. How bad is it? She announced that they're bringing in a consulting firm from Portland to assess systems and client relationships. Apparently, 3 more clients have requested contract reviews, and nobody can figure out how to generate the custom reports that 2 major campaigns require. What about staff morale? Tom, from Creative Services, already gave his notice. 2 of the junior account managers are actively job hunting. Rebecca keeps insisting that these are just temporary transition challenges, but everyone can see that the division is falling apart. Friday morning brought the final piece of news I had been expecting. David Sterling called me personally. Lennon, I want you to know that we've accepted Rebecca's resignation. She's agreed to step down immediately to pursue other opportunities. I'm sorry it came to that, David. No, you're not, he said, and I could hear him smiling. And honestly, neither am I. She was my hire, and it was a bad decision. I should have trusted my father's judgment about promoting from within. What happens now? We're hoping you'll reconsider the partnership offer. Full autonomy, equity participation, and you can restructure the digital division however you think is best. It was still a good offer, but my decision hadn't changed. David, I appreciate the confidence, but I've already committed to the independent consulting path. 3 clients have signed agreements, and 2 more are finalizing contracts next week. I understand. Can I ask one favor, though? Of course. When you're successful, and I know you will be, remember that Sterling Associates is where you learned the business. We'd love to partner with you on projects that are too big for either of us to handle alone. I'd be open to that conversation. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office overlooking Pioneer Square, reviewing quarterly reports for Rivera Digital Strategy. What had started as a way to maintain relationships with 5 former clients had grown into a thriving consultancy with 12 active accounts and a waiting list for new business. The success had exceeded my most optimistic projections. Not only had former Sterling Associates clients followed me to the new firm, but word-of-mouth referrals had brought in companies I had never worked with before. Apparently, the story of how I had built and then lost the digital division at Sterling Associates had become legendary in Seattle's business community, a cautionary tale about the importance of understanding what you're managing before you try to change it. The most satisfying development had been the partnership opportunities that emerged from my independence. Instead of being constrained by one company's operational limitations, I could now collaborate with specialists in different areas to provide clients with exactly the expertise they needed. Last month, I had actually partnered with Sterling Associates on a major campaign for a mutual client. Jonathan Sterling and I had lunch afterward, and he admitted that losing me had been the best thing that ever happened to our professional relationship. Lennon, he had said over dessert, when you were our employee, I took your contributions for granted. Now that you're our partner, I have a much better appreciation for what you bring to the table. David Sterling had also learned from the experience. He had promoted Jennifer to head the rebuilt digital division, and under her leadership, they had recovered most of their lost clients and developed a much more sustainable operational approach. But the most personally satisfying moment came 3 weeks ago when I received a LinkedIn message from Rebecca Walsh. She had found a new position with a smaller firm in Portland and wanted to congratulate me on my success and clear the air about any past misunderstandings. I read the message twice before deleting it without responding. Some bridges, once burned, aren't worth rebuilding. Yesterday, I had coffee with Diana Morley from Meridian Financial Group, who had become not just a client, but a genuine friend and business advisor. "Lennon," she said, "I've been thinking about everything that happened with Sterling Associates, and I realized something important. Rebecca actually did you a huge favor. How do you figure that? She forced you to discover that your value wasn't dependent on one company's recognition of it. If she hadn't fired you, you might have spent the next 10 years building someone else's business instead of your own." Looking back on everything that happened, I realized Diana was absolutely right. Rebecca's cruel smile that Friday afternoon had actually been the catalyst for the best professional decision I had ever made. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't plotting someone's downfall. Sometimes, it's building something so successful that their betrayal becomes irrelevant to your happiness. And sometimes, just sometimes, it's sitting in the office that could have been theirs, looking out at a city full of opportunities they'll never see, and knowing that their biggest mistake became your greatest achievement.